to bring you an update on the breaking news at Ingraham High School that King 5 first brought you at 10 o'clock this morning.
Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell, Police Chief Adrian Diaz is about to speak about the shooting now.
Sorry, I had to call this press conference. Woke up this morning, I didn't know I was going to call this press conference. So my heart goes out for everyone that's listening to this message, but particularly for the families and the members affected by this very intimately. So the student who was tragically shot has passed away. The student is deceased. The method by which we will give more details about that individual, there's a process there, so I won't go into details about that, but I needed you to know we are dealing with a death. Bear with me as I get through this, because as a Seattle Public School student, students can't learn or develop or grow to be the best versions of themselves when they have to fear for their life. Our schools have to be the highest safe havens for our youth, for our teachers, for our families. The tragedy impacts not just the family and the students and the faculty and administrators and everyone at Ingraham High School, but threatens the essential trust, that social contract, if you will, that we have with all of our communities. As a parent of Seattle Public School students and as a Seattle Public School student themselves, I don't even recall these kinds of situations when I was a kid. The times have changed. You'll hear from Chief Diaz, who will be able to give some factual information that happened this morning. You'll hear from our superintendent, Dr. Jones, to give us a few words as the superintendent of the public schools. He may be able to stay right after, but he also may have to leave because there's some logistical matters that he may have to attend to, so he's monitoring his communications. And then we'll hear from our Congresswoman, Pramila Jayapal, who, as always, is here in moments of need for families and in our community here in times of need, showing our leadership and our friendship. And I want to thank the Congresswoman for being here. So you hear from that order, and then of course we'll open up for Q&A. Let me close before I introduce the Chief by saying a few simple thoughts. I can't reiterate enough to everyone that listens that our primary responsibility is to keep people safe. This should be a unifying element in our city. It doesn't know a race or a demographic, an age, just safety. Our policies, our technology, our implementation, our culture has to be rooted in our desire to keep everyone safe. Since taking office, I've done more than 10 events at our Seattle Public Schools, whether it's talking to the kids or reading to the kids or attending an athletic event. And their joy is sort of what motivates me to be mayor, looking at their smiling faces. And we know they're not smiling right now at Ingram. And so as we continue to investigate and examine this tragic situation, it will be rooted in that universal value that I led with, is our need to keep everyone safe. And with that, I'd like to introduce Chief Adrian Diaz to share a few remarks and some information about what happened today. Chief Diaz.
As I mentioned before, we're a growing number of cities this year that have experienced a school shooting. And it's not what we wanted to hear. When one young man or young person can pick up a gun and shoot another young person, there's a problem. And I see plenty of people in this room that have dedicated their lives to try and make sure that they save lives. And they are saving lives. We all know that we can do more. When we experience a shooting like this at 9:55, when officers, were responding out to shootings or shots fired inside a school, we arrived within 4 minutes. 4 minutes. And within 4 minutes, We had a contact team already going in the school and trying to provide CPR to the victim. With another minute later, fire department was called in as well. So within 10 minutes of the call, the initial call, the fire department was going in to treat. That's amazing. So I want to say such a huge thank you to all the firefighters and officers that went to respond to the scene to handle this tragedy, that are going out and making contact teams, putting their life on the line to try and make sure that that school was safe. And like the mayor said, it's a problem when people go to school hoping that they're going to be safe so they can learn, and we have a shooting. An hour later, we were able to take the suspect into custody. Our harbor officers, because we had every officer in our department responding to this scene, our harbor officers actually located the suspect and took him into custody with King County Sheriff's Department. And we actually recovered a firearm. We don't know if that firearm is the one that was the firearm that was used in the school, but we did recover a firearm. This year we've recovered over 1,000 firearms. 1,000 firearms, and that is unheard of. We actually, even though we've been short-staffed, we were recovering more firearms this year than when we had full staffing. We have a gun problem, and we have to figure out ways that we can figure out how to solve this issue. There are a lot of rumors, there are a lot of things that are coming out in social media about potential second suspects and all this kind of stuff. Right now, we cannot confirm any information. All we can say is that we are making sure that we interview every witness that we can find, that we identify all the reasons why this could have occurred, and then figuring out ways that we can prevent this from happening again. Because we do not want to continue to be part of a school or part of a city that has a young person picking up a gun and using it to hurt or harm others. We have two families that have been impacted. Somebody that is going to jail and somebody that has lost their life. So we know we can do better than this. And we know we asked for the community's assistance. We know that we need to make sure that we can support everybody in our community, that we can have our kids thrive. But it starts today. So thank you for being here, and I'll turn it back over to the mayor.
Thank you, Chief. Before I introduce Dr. Jones, I'd like to say a few opening remarks. The superintendent was hired to do an extremely important job to get our kids educated. On the public safety side of the house, that is our responsibility as a city to work collaboratively with the superintendent. But at the end of the day, I don't think any superintendent in our country has said, and by the way, I'm going to run a public safety department to make sure our kids are safe. That would be too tall of an order for us to ask from any superintendent. The truth is, we continue to see a gun violence spike at unacceptable rates. Too many guns on our streets. Too many guns in the wrong hands. We all know, looking at best practices and what other cities are trying to do, that there's no singular solution for gun violence. It really demands a holistic approach, looking at many strategies. Our proposed budget right now, being deliberated on by the City Council, recognizes, we think, this holistic approach, solutions to address gun violence and to better collect evidence. And as many of you know, our legislative agenda we've been pushing has been to look at the state preemption law, RCW 941290, which prohibits a city from really legislating in this area. But we will continue to look at every feasible means to protect our children, to protect our teachers. I want to thank as the chief said, our first responders, our Seattle Fire Department, our Seattle Police Department. They were swift, they were committed, and I'm proud of the work that I saw. I also want to say that with a spirit of humility that I'm very grateful for the courage and compassion shown by the teachers and the staff at our Seattle Public School system. They helped out immediately. They provided information. Many had to wipe tears away to do the work that was necessary to keep going to help protect their kids. So I want to recognize the bravery that we saw. When I talk about One Seattle, I talk about trying to dig in and find that extra ounce of energy to keep plowing through some of the toughest times. And indeed, this is one of the toughest things that any family will have to face. So having said that, I'd like to introduce Dr. Brent Jones, our superintendent of Seattle Public Schools.
This is a tough time for us in Seattle. As a superintendent, you never want to step into a podium to speak to something like this. This should be rare and not commonplace. A tragedy has struck our community today, and as the mayor talked about, this is one Seattle. It is up to us to figure out how we can prevent this. An Ingraham High School student was shot and killed this morning on campus in what was to believe to be a targeted attack. We have no reason to believe this was part of a bigger plan other than a targeted attack. There are two victims in this. As Mayor Harrell mentioned, we have a victim and we have another victim that's life will be disrupted as well. Our students are now being reunited with their families, but the Ingram community probably won't be the same. We've suspended all activities for tomorrow and Thursday, and we'll give our adults, our teachers, our administrators, our school leaders an opportunity to get together and figure out how they can do the healing, how they can receive students and welcome them back to have a welcoming environment in light of what happened. Our collective hearts are broken as we think about the loss of one of our students. As a father, I can think of nothing worse than losing a child in this manner. The Seattle Police Department will do their work, and we will learn more details about what happened in the coming days. For now, my priority is to make sure the students and the families are safe. And to the parents, if you need help talking to your child about today's events, our health services team is available to you, and they will put information out to you in an email coming soon. I want to acknowledge the SPS families that your safety remains my focus, and I'll be working with Chief Diaz and the mayor and anyone else who wants to enroll in this endeavor to make our schools safer. I want to commend the responsiveness of the Ingram team. They did wipe away the tears. They were there for the students as they walked through this very tragic scenario. I attended Ingram today. I went and saw the families outside waiting to receive their students. I do not want to see that again. I witnessed staff grieving in real time. I don't want to see that again. We're going to work together as one Seattle to mitigate that. I urge us all to comfort each other, hold your loved ones close, and to think about what we can do again as one Seattle to mitigate this happening in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Jones, and we understand you may not be able to stay, but we thank you for being here. We're going to hear a few words from Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal, and if anyone's worked with or around the Congresswoman, you know that she doesn't run away from a tough battle. This is a tough day, and her leadership on the federal level and even her work as a community activist right here in Seattle speaks for itself, and so we are honored, absolutely honored that even during some of the toughest times, the toughest day in our administration, that she has graced us with her leadership and her voice. And with that, I introduce Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal.
Thank you so much, Mayor Harrell. Thank you for your leadership and pulling people together. Thank you for the demonstrated leadership you have in making sure that our entire city is safe. And thank you for the team that we have assembled here, which is really the only way that we can get through these tough times. I want to also thank Chief Diaz and Seattle Police Department. You heard how quickly the police units responded. That is incredibly important in these moments. And all of the officers that are part of that response every single day. I want to thank the Seattle Fire Department. We have always had some of the best response times in the Seattle Fire Department with our medics. That goes back to many decades. We've been known for that. And that is really critical for saving lives and for securing the places where these things happen. I want to thank all of our medics. I want to thank Seattle Public Schools, Dr. Jones, for your leadership. This is going to be difficult for our educators. All of the people that work in these buildings with kids and often are the ones that have to pick up the pieces of every crisis that happens at home and in the schools. That is a lot of burden that we place on our educators to be that place where kids can feel the comfort and the love and the safety that they need. So I want our educators to know how much we are committed to providing the kinds of resources that will need to be provided to really address the multiple facets of a situation like this. Also, everybody that was on scene at Ingram, I have a kid that went through Seattle Public Schools. I think so many of us are parents, guardians for kids who go into schools, and we send our kids off to school every morning believing that they're going to come home and believing that they are going to be safe, that they're not going to be hiding under desks, that they're not going to have to, even if they weren't the injured ones on the scene, they are injured emotionally from seeing this and from knowing that it could be them. And I'm grateful to everybody who has had to pick up the pieces at the school. This is a multifaceted problem. Yes, there are guns on the streets. We passed the first ever gun safety legislation in 30 years in Congress, but it wasn't sufficient. And even if cities take on the issue of guns, it is very difficult if somebody can bring guns in from somewhere else. You can't solve this just as a city, and so I recognize the work that we have to do at the federal level. We have put enormous amounts of money into mental health supports just in the last 2 years through our appropriations bills, through the American Rescue Plan, through many other pieces of legislation that we have passed. And the issue of mental health, and particularly with our young people, is a crisis in this country. Our Surgeon General has pointed that out. And just a couple of weeks ago, I did an incredible, moving roundtable with Children's Hospital and their youth mental health team about what is happening with our kids. 1 in 4 that is actively thinking about suicide. That is not a situation that any of us want to be in. And I think our solutions have to be comprehensive. They don't just rest on one specific thing. This takes all of us, and all of us, frankly, need tools, and particularly our young people, but all of us need tools to deal with our emotions that are not violent tools, not guns, not weapons of war, but actual ways to think about the ups and downs of where we are as a country. And so I am really here to be of support to the mayor, the police department, the fire department, all of our community leaders, all of our families and our communities, to hear the emotions that people have in this moment, and also to find the solutions at the federal level. And we will not rest until we can assure our families, our kids, our communities across the country that we are doing everything possible to address this crisis of gun violence, of mental health, of surviving in a world that's pretty darn tough. And I hear it from the kids, I hear it from our families, and I really am here just in solidarity and to say we are listening, we are continuing to look for the solutions, and I take that responsibility very seriously because I believe the federal government, in association with our cities, our counties, our states, this is our responsibility, and we're not shirking from it. So thank you again, Mayor Harrell, for allowing me to be here, but also for your tremendous leadership and continuing to make sure that we address this comprehensively.
Thank you for being here, Dr. Jones. Thank you, Congresswoman Jayapal, for that inspiring message. Before I take a few questions, I want to recognize that we have many of our community leaders here. You show up because you care. Thank you. I'm not going to call you out by name, but I see you, and the city sees you, so thank you for being here. I also received calls from other members of the faith community and the business community and the philanthropic community and the educational community saying their hearts are with us and they want to continue to be part of the solution, and they just really wanted to express a moment of sympathy and empathy for the families and the victims and the educational community and for the city as we get through this together. So thank you for all being here. And having said that, we'll entertain some questions. I would ask Jamie Housen to help me navigate through that.
Yeah, my question's for the chief. Can you provide details about how this happened, what led up to the shooting, how the victim and the suspect know each other?
So right now we cannot provide the specific details. We've actually been in this hallway of where the incident occurred. There's many witnesses to the scene. We got to make sure that we interview everybody to identify. We're looking at also video evidence as well to see what that encounter was, and then obviously to see what the previous interaction with those the two subjects are.
Can you tell us about the suspect arrest? Was there more than one arrest? Are you looking for any more? And can you tell us, is that off 145th and Aurora, any specifics?
It was off of 145th at a bus stop off Aurora, and we did locate one subject in the backpack that the subject had. We did recover a firearm. Again, I don't know yet until we actually go through ballistics to determine whether that is the firearm that was used at the scene. That's all still yet to be determined, and we're always looking to identify people that were in around that scene, were in around the incident that happened inside the school, and I'm sure that there'll be more people that that we still need to talk with as well.
Was there a resource on campus at the time?
Right now, we do not have school resource officers in the schools. We've also been, really short-staffed, and so being that we're short-staffed, we really have to make sure that we're dedicated to 911 responses.
Chief, can you share ages or names for either the suspect or the victim, and can you clarify if the suspect was a student at the school?
So not at this time. Part of that is we want to make sure that the family has notification, that all the family has notification for the victim. And right now we are working closely with the suspect's family as well. We are actually making contact at his residence as well, because not only was he at the 145th location where we made the arrest, but we also want to make sure that we're making contact with the residents as well.
Is that the SWAT scene up north? Is that the current SWAT incident?
Oh, I don't. So our SWAT team was at the residence, at a residence, I should say. But as far as the actual arrest, the arrest was actually done by a mixture of King County Sheriff's deputies as well as our harbor unit.
Chief, we heard that the victim was shot multiple times. Do you know whether or not that's true, or how many shots were fired in the hallway?
I won't be right now. I won't clarify that. I think right now the victim, we work closely with the medical examiner to make sure that we've done a thorough check for our investigation.
This is probably a better question for the superintendent, but Mayor, when he said that all activities have been suspended for tomorrow, Thursday, is that just at Ingram or for the district?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah.
Casey? You said you're looking at video. Do you know if this incident was on security camera?
There is video in the school district, in the actual school, and so we are actually analyzing that video.
So, Steve King's at Fox 18. We're hearing from some parents who only learn when their students, when their children reach out to them to be attacked. What's policy on how the school district even responds to parents or notifies them in similar circumstances?
Yeah, again, that's a good question. I don't know the school district's policy. I'm sort of taking mental notes of some of the questions, and so I will contact the superintendent and try to get you some information on how the district goes about their protocols.
Would you consider finding more money for resource officers since they've not been in schools for so long?
So I should make this clear, and that's a good question, that, and we've started these discussions even before today, that we believe some of the smartest and most effective solutions will come from the students themselves, from the district, working collaboratively with them. I've openly talked about a Seattle Public School where my football coach was a police officer and officers were around, but we have to recognize that was a long time ago. And right now, listening to the students and looking at what they see around the country, that we are at a point where we're trying to build trust between the police department and our students So we will continue to work with the students and the faculty and the teachers and the administrators on what true collaboration and community-based solutions look like, and that's why some of the community-based organizations that are here doing this important work will look like. So a school resource officer, officers around the campus interfacing with the students, all those are discussions that we will continue to have, and hopefully the solutions will result in a better Seattle and a better school district.
Just to clarify one thing you said, Chief, you said that SPD has recovered 1,000 guns this year. That's citywide, right? Not just schools.
That is citywide. Yeah, so we've had 660 shots, over 660 shots fired this year. And then we've actually recovered over 1,050 guns. We're continuing, obviously, to recover more guns. Right now, we still have 3 months left. It is a growing concern, the amount of violence that we're seeing, the amount of shots fired. And this isn't just related to schools. This is related to stuff that is, could be domestic violence, to road rage, to drive-by, to robberies, and so there's homelessness. So we're seeing it across the board. But this is where, just looking across this room, there's so many partners in this room that help a lot in trying to figure out how do we reduce that level of gun violence. And so we need to figure out every measure that we can.
Chief, you mentioned something about a targeted.
Okay, you have been listening to a press conference after a shooting this morning at Ingram High School in Seattle. We have learned one student was killed in what the district superintendent says was a targeted attack. We have also learned a suspect is in custody right now.
Police say that they responded to the campus within 4 minutes of receiving a 911 call. Police also say they've recovered a firearm, although it is unclear right now if that was the weapon that was used in that shooting.
The reunification process of families and students started about noon today. Unclear if that is complete at this hour. About 1,400 students go to that school. We can tell you the school district has canceled classes for Ingram High School students tomorrow.
Now, we don't yet know the identity of the victim or the shooter, but we will continue to follow the story throughout our newscast tonight. I'm Steve Solis.
I'm Jessica Janner Castro. We continue our team coverage on King 5 News at 4 p.m. We'll see you then.